Another big match preview. We're back again. New year, hopefully. New team after recent weeks, but regardless, come on, let's go again.
I get those goosebumps every time.
I just have to get the big fella off the bench.
Could this be their last chance now? In it comes, Monster to the front post! He scored! Ali Monster scored!
I'm way too numb, yeah. It's way too numb, yeah. I get those goosebumps every time. I need that line to throw that to the side, yeah. I get those goosebumps every time, yeah. When you're not around, when you throw that to the side, yeah. I get those goosebumps every time, yeah. 713 through the 21, yeah, I'm riding. Why they on me? Why they on me? I'm riding. Sipping low key, sipping low key and hiding. I get those goosebumps every time. I'm around, yeah. You ease my mind, you make everything feel fine. Worry about those cons. I'm way too numb, yeah. It's way too dumb, yeah. I get those goosebumps every time. I need the hype.
How does no one like that music, Pete?
We are live. We're on air, ready to go. Match preview. And if you haven't already, click that like and subscribe. Do all the housekeeping and get us on the way. But you are right, Chris. Why do people not like that music?
I've seen Errol like that in the background, loving it.
Yeah, bopping away. He does. He likes it. He just told me that my mic's a little bit low, volume-wise. If I was crank it up a little bit, is it better now? Okay, yeah. He's the mic connoisseur, telling me what's what. But look, welcome to everyone. Good evening. Hope you are well. Let's look ahead to the next big match, and it is a big match for more than one reason. Liverpool against Newcastle United at Anfield. And look, as we've talked, the main man, Chris Hall, Brandon Blaze in the house. As always, hope you are well, fella. Look, how you feeling? First and foremost, about our journey to Mount Everest, the Mount Everest of fixtures, shall I say, in January. How are you feeling about that kind of the first step, the first climb, shall we say?
Yeah, you know what? I annoy myself, Pete, because I'm like eternally optimist, and I don't know why. Every time I go to Anfield, I think this is it now. This is it. And obviously, we saw what happened last season at Anfield when I was there in the away ends, and Carvalho scored that last minute winner in like the 99th minute or whatever it was. See Errol celebrating there. And then obviously this season, we're 1-0 up. Liverpool is down to 10 men. Should have been 9, but we won't go into that. And then the sucker punches twice with Darwin Núñez, partly down to our own fault. But I always go into the Liverpool game and think we can get something. I mean, you look at it now, and it's going to be a big ask, like you said. It's a big mountain to climb, but why not? And it's a new year, a new start. So why not, Pete? Why not is what I'd ask.
Yeah, very true, very true. Why not is the question. But look, it is very difficult at the moment. We are down there. Look, we're going to get into it all, and I understand why some fans are quite pessimistic about it. There's certain factors and variations that will mean that we've got a chance, but of course we're going to get into it, and we'll get into it right now because we'll bring in the main man. Who's already, I feel like we're on with Lawless at the moment because there's been some shameless responses already in the background before he's even come on live. But the main man, Errol from Redmen TV, let's get him on right now. Errol, how you doing, my man?
Gents, good evening. How's everybody okay?
All good.
Pick up the chat. Everybody seems to be in good spirits. We love to see it. Still the Christmas season, in it, so we're still jolly. But yeah,
the question for you is are you in good spirits? Are you in a festive mood? Because we're in the doldrums in the moment. Are you willing to help us out in this fixture on Monday night? We're asking We're asking for a friend.
You can ask for a friend, but I'm not in the mood to be given no favors right now. Like I've been saying it for the last couple of weeks. Once it gets to that 18 game mark, that's when, that is when everything, you cast your eyes to that finish line, and everything up until that point now it's self-preservation. You've got to look after your own camp, got to look after your own players. You can't be looking at other teams to do you favors. I've seen people putting tweets out, Liverpool and Manchester City or United today. I'm like, when's Arsenal ever been that relevant? Like, no, you will bottle it for yourselves. Like, we're not asking for no favors off nobody. From here on out, it's about you doing your own job. And I thought, to be fair, this time last season, we had similar conversations. Will Liverpool be able to catch Newcastle? Will they be able to make up the ground? And I genuinely felt you were favourites right up into it. And I thought it's up to Newcastle to do us the favour, because they're in the driving seat. They would have to drop the clangers. They would have to drop the points. It does seem like a bit of a reverse of fortunes at the moment, but I do think you've got enough and enough time. What I thought last year, we had enough time to do it. We just came short in the end. But it's back to that point now. You've got to look after yourself, and you've got to put yourselves first. And it is literally as many points you can get on the board between now and the end of the season. Those will be the teams. That will be the reward for the teams when you want those European places, whether that is, your Champions League or Europa League. Obviously, none of us really want to be having conversations about Conference League, but essentially those are the two big focuses for clubs like Newcastle, Liverpool, Villa this season. Obviously, the Arsenals, the Spurs, the Man Uniteds of this world as well.
Definitely. You're clearly in sort of game mode at the moment, and I get it. I completely understand why. I just want to talk to you really quickly though, because you touched on Newcastle United, and we don't normally start with our team, but we will, just because you look at the situation currently with Newcastle. We lost 6 of their last 7.
I was just looking at your fixtures there. So am I right in saying you lost to Bournemouth? This is going right back to November. So even if I take it back, the last one, so you've won against Man U, then you've lost to Everton 3-0.
Yeah.
You're losing the Champions League on the last day. That knocks you out of the competition, 2-1 to Milan.
Yeah.
Quarterfinals of the Carabao Cup, which is were finalists in last season. You go out on penalties. I think Trippier had a stinker. And then obviously there's Newcastle Forest mixed in with them as well, and a couple of losses there on the road.
Yeah. So yeah, thanks for a trip down memory lane with that. But yeah, you are right. We've lost 6 out of the last 7. I think the Fulham win at home 3-0 was the only win that we've had recently. Are you surprised by what's happened with Newcastle United in recent weeks?
Yes and no. And when I say that, to say that I genuinely felt that you would have probably struggled more toward when you were in the thick of your injury crisis. I felt you dealt with that part of things exceptionally well. You were still getting some results in Europe at the time. You were not necessarily in a driving seat, but we know you had the group of death anyway. You were still in the seat to take it to the last game, potentially still in your hands. I thought you'd picked up some good results in the league in that time as well. So if I'm looking back, you had beat Arsenal. I know you'd knocked out Man United in the cup. You had a decent, a draw against the Wolves side that are pretty sharp at the moment, and he's absolutely wiped the floor with Crystal Palace. So around that time, that is where I thought you would have probably lost points. There was a few really tough games thrown in the mix there, and I just thought if the wheels are going to fall off, it's going to be right before it gets to Christmas, and then you will start picking things up. The way that it's turned out is you weathered that initial storm, and then just as you were starting to pray for players to come back, it was almost as if the wheels had just started. And not necessarily I think it was just maybe the tank had been emptied by that point. Everybody had given everything into the early missions of, getting as far as you can in the Carabao Cup, being able to get out of the group stage of the Champions League. So much had went into that. And you know it's a slog anyway, that, it makes the season a lot longer when you're playing twice a week. But I think players, I'm not necessarily morale, but maybe just players' form and the engine and the running out of the energy all just seem to combine at the same time for you. And I don't really think Howe's done. I mean, again, I don't watch it I won't watch Newcastle as closely as you, gents. I don't necessarily think Howe's tweaked too much I just think it's a momentum thing. There's been a big momentum swing in the favor of other teams that are coming up, as well as the fact that you've had a couple of bloody noses that probably just took a little bit out of what you were really trying to build in the early part of the season. And I think we've seen that, with Liverpool in years gone by, when early parts of the season have just unraveled a little bit sooner than you've been able to get a real stranglehold and get a grip with your players coming back to really mount any real sustained challenge. And that really sets you back. So I think he's in a bit of a precarious position at the moment because it is a bit touch and go with Newcastle. But I wouldn't be calling panic stations yet. I think you mentioned it about being, this is the first part of the mountain that you've got to climb for your January fixtures. If the situation looks very similar at the end of January, yeah, I could understand the cause for panic and concern. But Eddie Howe it was never always going to be, rosy and all singing, all dancing at all points in time with him, even with the management structure, even with the ownerships in place. There was always going to be trials and tribulations that you would have to overcome. And I feel as though it's an opportunity. And I think, to be fair, the fact that he's out of Europe now, it's not like a free hit, but it's come at a time and the pressure is off from the expectation side of things. You don't have to go deep into Europe. You're out of the Carabao Cup early, so you can refocus around the FA Cup. I know you've got a pretty close derby for that one. But essentially, I think the pressure's off now for him to just regain the Premier League form that he's been so prominent with over the last 12 to 18 months, and I think that'll be quite welcomed. It's an experience and a steep learning curve, but he'll welcome the fact that all of that pressure's a little bit off now, and it's just about focusing on the day job now. Let's get back to the bread and butter, because I think he does that. He's a top manager when it comes to doing that stuff for you guys.
It's really interesting, actually, and you made some great points, but it's really interesting that you ended that with what you've just said, in that Eddie Howe is a top manager, and it'll kind of come through it, because actually on our show, on our sort of reaction show to the Forest game yesterday, me, Chris and Daz were talking about Eddie Howe, and the reason why is because after that loss at Nottingham Forest, there's a lot, surprisingly for me, and I think for Chris as well, a lot of Newcastle fans on social media have been calling for Eddie Howe to be sacked. Like, and look, we have to remember, social media is a small section of
and
it.
It's an echo chamber, isn't it? As soon as it just starts perforating across all of it and it infiltrates your timeline. Yeah,
some people.
I think there's a lot of entitlement for that for me, Peter. If I'm being honest with you, like you have had some shocking managers and one of the worst owners to have everything pointing in the right direction. Yet you can't take a few on the chin. Would it be fair to say you're always gonna have to take the rough with the smooth? We have to do it with Klopp. You've seen how we was last season, Pete. But I was resolute in the fact that I knew Klopp with his team would eventually turn it round. It just wasn't our season last year, and you've got. I know you.
I thought he was going to walk in the summer.
Yeah, and it looked sketchy at the time, and you've got to be able. We sit where we do. You've got to be able to take it on the chin. It's part and parcel. But I think for teams, for fans especially, again, that's for all fan bases to turn around and spit the dummy out because there's been a big downturn in form. It happens to us all. Manchester, can you imagine Manchester City fans calling for Pep to go after the November, December that he had? But it's that same sort of mentality. It doesn't really sit well with me. But again, as you mentioned, it's the small pockets of social media that kind of just make things a bit more toxic.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you this regarding Eddie Howe before we move on to Liverpool. In your opinion, and this is kind of you projecting your opinion now to Newcastle United fans, with the fact that you've got a manager that's won trophies, that's been successful, that is a top elite manager, why should we keep hold of Eddie Howe? Because me and Chris are of the same mindset. Eddie Howe should be in the job. But there are a section of fans, Newcastle fans out there, that don't necessarily think that should be the case. Why should Eddie Howe, in your opinion, and you're talking from an outside point of view, but why should he be the man to take us forward?
If you honestly, I don't think you've seen the best of him yet, and that would be not necessarily a concern. If you were to just knee-jerk get rid of him, there are going to be queues of teams that would line up to get him. Now, does he get the same level of opportunity again with Newcastle in terms of being so close to vying on the door for Europe almost every season with the opportunities and the resources? Maybe not. So maybe the level he'd have to drop at, or it'd be an in-between, and it'd be a build and a project again. But why would he go somewhere to just build a project to only get them to where Newcastle are right now? He's not going to get a team lower than yous above what yous are capable of, or the places that you're capable of going. So I say that because I think with him there, not only have you got the structure, you've got the trust behind him. He's got that rapport and the relationship with the players. The fans in the ground all seem to love him. So I think he doesn't feel any hostility from any of, the match-going fans, to say the least. And then when you add that on to the fact that I think Newcastle as an entity, since they've been taken over by this ownership, mate, they've been very book smart. They're not just haphazard throwing out big sums. And I know you have mentioned, financial fair play. I'm playing it by the book, but you haven't just said, yeah, there's the dollar. We'll have him. You know what? It was a Felix last year. Did he go to? Was it Chelsea that he went to? Or was it the season before now? But we'll have him. He's a marquee signing. You haven't went and just cherry picked players that across Europe are renowned, but might come with a bit of an ego, might not really want to integrate, might just be there for the payday. You have steered clear of a lot of those early pitfalls and traps. And that's not to say that other teams will pull you into those traps, but it's easy when you see the money signs in your eye and you think, oh yeah, let's see who we can get in. Yeah. And I think from his perspective, the way in which that you have done your business, it's now afforded him the opportunity. And it might not be this January, it might be the summer. But if he turns around to the board and says, right, European football one season, Champions League, second season, conservatively, let's say you only get Europa League as it stands today based on form. He's only qualified for Europa League, but that's 2 seasons back-to-back where he's been in the top 2 European competitions. You can't tell me you can't turn around to that board and say, I need 150 mil because I've identified this player, and this player, and these are the lads that are going to take us to the next level. And it's not to say that we're going to challenge in the Premier League next level, but it means that we'll be in the Champions League next season. And I'll commit to going as far as we possibly can in the Europa League this season. And when I look at that, and I think you're only a couple of players away. I know injuries have really blighted this season for you, but your squad now turning that 11 into 14, 15, 16 that you can rotate, where the drop-off in quality isn't as big as the other players. Now, bear in mind, when the momentum was there, the other lads that you were pulling in, we were all pulling the weight. But sometimes you're asking them to go to the well one time too many. And sometimes when you just haven't got it, that's where you get. And I genuinely think you will only see the best out of him once he's been, not saying he hasn't been backed, but once he gets that next level of resources to really go to town and build that squad. I think he needs that full squad of 14 to 15 players that he can wrap his arm around and say, "Use are my lads. We're going to go deep into a couple of competitions this year, but use the lads I'm going to rely on game in, game out. You're all going to get minutes. You're all going to get time, but this is where we're going." And I think at that point, that is why you want to keep hold of somebody like Errol, because I've said it before with the likes of Arteta and the Unai Emery's, they may be nearly men, but sometimes having your nearly men, especially in your early stages of this new ownership, can set you up for the long term. Like Brendan Rodgers was our nearly men, but we had him in the early days at FSG. They learned so much from his wins in terms of in the dressing room, on the pitch, around the club, but they also learned from those losses. And it'd be great. It'd be an amazing story if Eddie Howe was to take you to the promised land of where you as Newcastle fans want to be. But there's never a guarantee in football. So if he can collate and put together a squad fit enough to compete at that highest level for a long enough period over time, that might be job well done for Eddie Howe. You might not want him to be that guy that takes you to the next level, but once you can stand on your own, off your own back and say, actually, do you know what? We've got the heritage, we've got the experience, we've got the nous, we've got the know-how. Now let's go get a world-class manager that's available as well to just really add that extra fuel in what this Newcastle engine's going to be in 2 to 3 years' time. that might be the conversation. But in the here and now, I'm not saying he's a nearly man, but I'm saying you haven't got the best out of this man as it stands. And I think it's worthwhile. You've put this investment in so far. I think if it was me speaking to Newcastle fans, I think it'd be worthwhile just holding off a little bit, keep your powder dry, and just know, come the summer, just reassess everything and see if he gets the people that he wants and if he gets the budget and the funds allocated to him in it to enable him to do that. And I genuinely think you will have a much more fruitful season in 12 months' time. We'll have this conversation again in 12 months' time, and the conversation, the mood around Eddie Howe will have done a complete 360 all over again. And I think at that point, you'll probably want him to be the guy to take you to the promised land as well. He's done so much of the hard work. Let him get you over the line almost. Where with us, we knew Brendan had took us as far as he could take us. When you see an opportunity for a Jurgen Klopp, you've got to operate in the market and you've got to snap him up. So to be fair, I wouldn't be jumping for joy if Eddie Howe went now. I think it'd be a massive disservice, to be fair to him, especially for the graft that he's put in.
Love it. Great assessment there, Chris. I'm going to come to you. Actually, I'm going to get your thoughts on exactly what Errol said with regards to Eddie Howe. You know, what do you agree with? Is there anything else that you may have seen that Errol hasn't? Obviously, being a Newcastle fan, just what do you make of all that? Because there was a lot said there.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, like I quite liked Errol's summary there. You know, when he was saying that like it doesn't feel like the right time for Eddie to go. And I think that's something that we as Newcastle fans need to be aware of, because, you know, if Eddie Howe was to go tomorrow, I think we'd all think, you know, he took us so far in such a short period of time, but we would always wonder if he could have got us over the line, if he could have got that trophy. And I think we'd always wonder that. And yeah, it is a difficult period at the moment. And we were discussing, weren't we, Pete, on the reaction show? To the Nottingham Forest game, we were discussing not discussing our options, but saying like, what if? And I think, you know, things could look a lot different in 12, 18 months, or it could be that we've got Eddie Howe and that the team is now performing better, and, you know, we can bring in new players and things will be settled. I mean, I said, Errol, in the Nottingham Forest reaction, to me, it would be interesting to see how much money Eddie's afforded in January. Because for me, I think he needs at least 2 or 3 bodies through the door. And I do actually think it'll lift the squad. And when you mentioned Brendan Rodgers, it's right, isn't it? Because when Brendan Rodgers left Liverpool, it did feel like the time for him to go, and that he'd taken it as far as he could. He'd had his opportunity.
You will know that. You as the fans, you will know
when it's time.
It's done. It's time.
Yeah.
Even from the outside looking in, I'm just like, how could you part ways with this guy now? Like,
yeah.
And again, respectfully, not saying that you haven't got the pull power, but who do you get to come in at this moment in time to do a better job than him? It was easy for us. Jurgen Klopp had been on sabbatical for nearly 18 months. Do you know what I mean? He was entertaining conversations about going back into management. You've got to act.
Yeah.
There's no 2 ways about it.
Yeah.
So I agree with you, mate.
Yeah,
definitely. Great points, boys. And I think it sums up situation perfectly. So many people in the chat are saying, you know, Errol, you're talking sense. You know, obviously it's great to hear your thoughts. It's always good to hear. I think, Chris, you might agree that, you know, someone else from the outside looking in, and this is why I asked Errol that question, is because you're obviously you're a team that's been successful. You're a team that's got a manager that's been successful, and you've had a similar experience with other managers in how you've managed it. So it's a great kind of sort of marker to look at from that point of view. And we are still growing, and so is Eddie Howe. And we said this yesterday, Chris, where we said exactly this. Eddie Howe is learning on the job. You know, on the 12th man, Errol, you know, like Lourdes always throws these comparisons of Unai Emery and Eddie Howe, and they're just not comparable at this point in time because of how much experience Unai Emery has at the top table in comparison to Eddie Howe. He's still learning. This is the biggest and the highest he's ever been in his managerial career. So he has to learn and grow as he's doing it and as he's working.
He's shown to me already that he's somebody that does learn, and he's quite adaptable, and he doesn't seem to have and maybe that's the youth of him as a person, really. And I think he's quite open to taking
Oh,
I've just seen that coming through. Ooh, say less, say less. Hopefully, go on, West Hammers.
Hey, look at that smile. Look at that smile. He's like,
oh.
There's me saying 10 minutes ago, I don't need no favors.
He's like, yes.
We'll take it. We'll take it. But no, in all fairness, I think maybe that's the youth side of them, because you know certain managers get to a certain age and they're just stubborn and they don't want to have any. They're just rigid. They don't want to be flexible in any way, shape, or form. And there's a part of me where I think Eddie Howe was quite receptive to the advice from others and what he's seen, and he takes notes from other managers and stuff like that, and he's implemented it really well. And I just find someone like him with that energy, at the minute, it's a match made for Newcastle. So I don't understand why you would rock the boat, because the grass isn't always greener. I'll tell you that right now.
Definitely. Look, we could keep talking about Eddie Howe for the next 20 minutes, but look, we're not going to, because we're going to look a little bit more into the opposition, into Liverpool. And look, I talked about this just a minute ago, Errol, and I said to you, when Liverpool were in their worst moments last season, on the 12th man, I said, and I think Dan United agreed with me. You said
He did.
Could be Klopp's last season. He could walk. He could, it doesn't look like there's a rebuild there. A lot of players coming towards the end. Henderson, a few others. You couldn't see where the improvements were going to be, and as quickly as they're proven to be. Like, how do you assess, in the 6 months since we last had that conversation, how do you assess that rebuild and how it's taken place? In particular, the midfield, but how do you assess the rebuild first and foremost, but how Jurgen Klopp has managed that from a Liverpool
perspective? I never once got worried that he was going to walk. You were trying to plant the seed, but I know he had just signed the extension on his contract, and to me, it doesn't seem like he would do that only if things are going right. Oh yeah, I'll sign an extension because everything's all rosy and it's going the direction that I want it to go. No, we went in a great moment. It was a big boost for us that to say that he was committing to us. So I almost felt as though he was committing to rebuilding the squad, even if that was a case of, I'm going to rebuild it with some youth, some new lads. I'm going to get them to gelled, and then if I have to go because I've not took them to the top again in 2 years, that's fine. There will be a good core squad of players. I'm going to leave the squad in a healthier condition than I found it. That was my initial thought. Is he future pacing the fact that he needs to leave us in a healthy position, and he's just doing this out of the loyalty and the love for the club that he's fell in love with since he's been in England? I would have been fine with that. However, 6 months down the line, he looks 5 years younger again. He looks like he's got that fire in his belly. And in terms of that midfield, it's been remarkable, because that was my biggest reservation, if I'm being completely honest with you. I've seen Jurgen Klopp bring in Naby Keita, Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain, Fabinho, to name a few of the midfielders. And then I've seen, obviously, other midfielders leave and the tweaks that he had made to them. And one of the biggest things that I always used to think to myself was, it's great when you find a gem, but it takes a while for them to get up to speed, whether that's in the sixth position. I know Ox didn't necessarily get up to speed straight away. Naby Keita never really seemed to get going ever. Fabinho took a while, but once he did get going, he was ever present. And it just felt as though we've left ourselves too much to do. And if I'm being completely honest, with you, I was shocked, because the fact that they've always seemed to take 3 to 6 months before they've been able to gel with the other midfielders, and you get that balance back, and you've got to drop them in a few games, take someone out, put Milner in, because you know what you're going to get from him. All of a sudden, Szoboszlai came in and hit the ground running. And we can talk about his recent form, but I think it was really important that he came in and got off on the right foot. Szoboszlai did it. McAllister, we've seen in recent weeks since he's been out injured, there's been a little bit of a drop-off. Maybe that's had a knock onto Szoboszlai's performances as well, because that drop-off has coincided in McAllister being missing. Endo, massive. Wow. Well, yeah, maybe we did.
He's one of our NUFC connoisseurs. He knows all the leagues.
Well, maybe you're right then, mate. Maybe it was the right time to let him go. And to be fair, there was a little bit of value in him as well because we sold him for some decent money. So yeah, but that was my biggest reservation. I've been saying it all season. We've got the best attacking line at the minute. It doesn't look like that, by the way, but we've got the best attacking line on paper. We'll blow teams away. We'll probably win loads of games 4-3, 4-2, 3-1. That might be us this season. We'll concede goals at the back, but going forward, you're not going to be able to stop us. And it's actually been the midfield and the defense, the most impressive part of the rebuild. I give a lot of credits to the recruitment, getting the players right, them better gelling and bedding in. I got to give a lot of credit to that. But that defense, mate, I had Rich Joe Gomez off. I said Matip was done. Matip's really unlucky to be out with his injury for the rest of the season, by the way, because he was having a fantastic season for us. Joe Gomez, I had writ off. All of a sudden, he hasn't put a foot wrong in 3 of the positions he's played in that back line all season. Right back, centre back, left back, brilliant. Quansah, didn't even know who he was. I'll be honest with you, I'm not one of those Liverpool fans that sits there and looks at the kids that much. If you make it into the team, you've got my attention. But if you're still in the academy, wait till you break into the senior team before I start chanting your name. Quansah, like, I think he looks the real deal, mate. And I think it's because he probably for the last 2 years, while he's probably been sat there and been an unknown quantity to somebody like me, he's been a student of the Matips, the Canates, the Van Dijks, and he's watching their tapes. He's watching them train. He's having conversations with them. He's getting tips and little tricks, and all of a sudden, it's all starting to come together in a young lad that is now. You know, we were speaking so highly of Colwell last season, what he done at Brighton, going back to Chelsea, a young lad. They wanted 70-odd million for him. Liverpool were never going to pay that price for the centre-back. I wouldn't pay that money for another young centre-back now. If Quansah, again, or there's still a lot of football that can happen for the young lad, but provided he doesn't show any signs of being injury-prone or anything like that, I think he's a solid option. And to me, that is where, and obviously you've got Alisson in goal, but to me, that is where I've been on the pitch. That's where I've been the most impressed defensively. We've got the best defensive record of the league, up there with, well, better than Arsenal's now, because Arsenal have apparently just conceded the goal. So we've got the best defensive record of the Premier League. When everybody said to me from day one, it's Liverpool's defense that's going to get them into trouble this season. Defense is win your titles. So Liverpool have got, as it stands, a title-winning defense. What I need to see going forward now is that attack springing into life, because if the attack springs into life in these last 18, it's going to be a very, very tight title race, I'll tell you that much. But I think his team has done exceptionally well. I do believe he's got that fire in his belly again. And I genuinely think he wants to see how far he can take this new evolved side with some new talisman in and amongst it all. I think the idea of Virgil van Dijk being captain as well was a masterstroke, because I think it's brought the best out of his game again. There's just been a lot of things just silently that were just ticking boxes, and I think that's the best way to sum us up. We've just ticked over silently. A lot of people wanted to write us off, but all of a sudden they're looking over the shoulder thinking, yeah, Liverpool aren't going away this year. Last year you could see it unravel. This year they're airtight. They're not going anywhere, and I think that's the biggest confidence that I've taken from it so far in the last 6 months.
Errol, sorry, go on.
I'm going to say hold that because I was going to come to you, Chris. Go for it.
Yeah, right. No, I've got a question just off the back of what Errol's been saying there, and I wanted to ask about this guy, and Foxy's already asked the question. How impressed have you been with Endo? And I know that at the start of the season, everyone was saying that, you know, because you'd lost Henderson, because you'd lost Fabinho, and everyone was waiting for that number 6, weren't they? And I think you said yourself, Errol, that, you know, number 6 was a priority position and that you had concerns. Do you think, I mean, Endo made a bit of a slow start, didn't he? Like, he got a few minutes and stuff like that, but he wasn't really trusted. But it seems in the last few weeks that Endo's like a bit of a mainstay in that Liverpool midfield. And do you think that's got anything to do with your defensive performances of late? And I'll ask the question as well. Lots of jokes from all the fan bases when the deal was done, and 90% of them watched him play. But now looks like one of the deals of the year.
I'm one of them. I'm not gonna lie.
We was all on 12, man. We all didn't have a clue, and that's just, again, that's the football fans. When we're so tunnel vision on the Premier League, unless you're a big marquee name across Europe, or you play FM or you play FIFA, I'm too old for that. Them things now. So unless I have heard about yet, or you've been ripping up cheese.
Younger than me.
I am young, but I don't play FM and FIFA no more. Them days are done.
Still there, bro. Still
yeah.
not as
Maybe when the baby's a little bit bigger, I'll get him into that kind of stuff. But me, I just haven't got the attention span to be playing video games. But I just think there was, unless you're one of those players that are hyped up. Szoboszlai was hyped up. There was a lot of talk about him. I hadn't seen him play football. I had seen highlights of him score rockets, but I thought, okay, take a punt on him. I'm not 100% sure, but he was highly spoken of. You had to go and speak to somebody who knew somebody about the Bundesliga, who knew something about is it Stuttgart, who knew something about where Endo had come from, for him to then turn around and say he's a bit of a player. I'm glad though. I said if the only thing I did say, even though all jokes aside, the only thing I did say was for £15 million, even if it doesn't work, so what? January, you go get the right guy. If he's a stopgap, go get the right guy in January. And for me, I'll be honest, he still might be a stopgap. We might need a 22, 23-year-old midfield destroyer. We still might need a Caicedo-like mold or a Lafia-like mold to come through. But I hope what I would really like to see, if I could future pace it again, is Endo's good enough for this season. Irrespective of what Liverpool go on to do, he's proven that he's good enough and he's capable enough in some big games and especially in the European competitions. I'd like to see him hold down the position, even if we do the business and get somebody else. I'd like to see him see it as competition for him to hold down that position, and I'd like to see young Bajcetic next season say, right, I am going to be your Lavia, I am going to be your Caicedo, and there's another person there. But the same way Quanta turned around and said, yeah, I'm really sorry about Joel. I'm gutted for him and his family. My deepest sympathies go out to him. But from the start of the season, my objective was to get in ahead of him over the team. I want that same sort of competition from a youngster in Bajcetic's mold, because last season he was the bright light in what was a bog standard season for Liverpool by all accounts. So if we could do something like that, and if Endo can show he's got that longevity to at least the end of the season, you're right, it's a coup, mate. For 15, 16 mil, you don't get good quality ballers like that where you think they're going to actually be transformative to your team. I don't think he's transformative, but I think he plugs a gap, and it was 100% a gap that Liverpool needed to address before the start of the season. So we've done the business in having the body there, but the body can move as well. The body's capable. He's not just, he's not a mannequin. Let's just say that.
Definitely. No, I agree. Great question with regards to that. Foxy and Chris were bringing it up for sure. There's something I want to add to that, but later on in the show, we're the worst on away days. We try and be stickler for times, but it just never quite works out. And it's anyway, we're gonna move on, because I want to get us now to think about. We'll come back to that conversation. So I want to bring something up, and I want to get both of your responses on this. But I want to get into the match, because we're talking about the match. Like, you are too comfortable, Errol. You're talking about all the good things. You're talking about how your team's been rebuilt, how you're rejuvenated, how Jurgen Klopp is back. Okay, I want us to talk about the match, because the one question I want to know, and what every Newcastle United fan wants to know is praying for, is where can we exploit you guys? And the only way to find that out is when we go to the tactics ball. But just hold your thought on that, Errol, because as always, when we look at the match in a little bit of detail, we need just a few stats just to get us going. Like magic here, please. 00 Stato, Keith Roll, how are you doing? First of all, Merry Christmas. Hope you've had a great Christmas and a great time with family and friends. But down to business again, as always. Match previews. What have you got for us this week, mate?
Yeah, Merry Christmas to everybody at Loaded, and also to Errol as well. I hope you all had a great Christmas. I certainly had a great Christmas before and after, if we just don't mention football and take football out of the equation. Thank you. Got loads of stats here, lots of head-to-head and historical stats. stats on the managers, a few on the players, and also I've put a few stats together on Newcastle's recent form. So people might want to put something in their ears when I go into the last couple of stats. Newcastle's record against Liverpool in the Premier League since 93-94 season, played 58 games. There's been 11 wins, 12 draws, and 34 defeats. And Newcastle's record against Liverpool in the Premier League at Anfield, played 28, won 1, drawn 5, and lost 22. So it's probably Newcastle's worst away trip.
That's up there with Everton's. That's
It's shocking, mate. It's shocking.
wow.
Yeah,
It's shocking.
and that first win came in Newcastle's first Premier League trip to Anfield as well, when the old cop was still there in 1994 with goals from Andy Cole and Rob
I
Lee.
still had the dummy in my mouth back then. Oh.
We did win there with a wonder goal from Steve Watson in '95 at the height of the entertainers, but again, you know, that was in the mid '90s, so it's been a long time coming. If or whenever we get another result at Anfield. So clean sheets, Liverpool have got a better defensive record in this fixture as well, with 18 clean sheets to Newcastle's 8. Newcastle haven't won it in any of the last 14 Premier League games against Liverpool, 4 draws and 10 defeats, including 5 defeats in the last 5 games. The last win in this game, bizarrely as well, came in the 2015-16 season, with Newcastle winning 2-0 at St. James's in December 2015. Shows you how long ago it was, when Steve McLaren was the manager, and I believe it was in Jurgen Klopp's first season as well. And that defeat is the only defeat Jurgen Klopp has had against Newcastle United. He's managed 15 games. He's won 10, he's drawn 4, and he's only lost the 1. Whereas Eddie Howe, unfortunately, 18 games he's managed against Liverpool during his time at Bournemouth and Newcastle. 1 win, 1 draw, and 16 defeats. Yeah, I know. Please hang in there with us, and I'll try and find some positivity.
Hey, this is music to my ears. Keep spitting, keep spitting, bro.
Hey, this isn't Redbird TV. We need some positivity on this channel. Come on.
It won't be from the goalkeepers, because unfortunately Martin Dubravka has conceded 14 goals in 9 games for Newcastle United, and that's coincided with Newcastle's 6 defeats in the last 7 games. Before Nick Pope's injury, Newcastle had conceded 16 goals in 20 games in all competitions. Alisson, on the other hand, he's got 6 clean sheets in 17 Premier League games this season for Liverpool. Darwin Núñez, he scored his 23rd goal for Liverpool in all competitions, and it was his first goal in the last game, the previous game of Burnley, to come from outside the box. So all of his previous 30 to 40 goals over the 2 seasons have come from inside the penalty area. Mo Salah, he's had success against Newcastle over the years with 6 goals in 14 games, with 4 goal scoring assists. Callum Wilson, he's scored twice against Liverpool in 11 Premier League games. And some general stats here to round off, including some stats on Newcastle's recent form. This one is a standout stat. This one, Liverpool have come from behind to beat Newcastle 11 times in the Premier League. No teams come back from behind to win games against any other opponent in Premier League history. So especially that last game at St. James's as well, at the start of the season, when Newcastle were a goal up with Anthony Gordon. And during the first 11 games of the Premier League season, Newcastle were about second, third in attacking stats. Goals scored, about 27 goals. Shots on goal as well, I had 66 goals, and they had the expected goals of 23 goals as well in the run of the first 11 games. And they were also first in shots on target percentage as well, with about 44% as well. So they were doing really well in the first 11 games of the season, but they've dropped off in all the categories in the last 7 games. Since Newcastle's win against Arsenal, the goals have dropped from 2.45 per game to 1.25, and the shots is down as well, from 6 shots to 4.8 as well. So the shots on target has dropped off as well. And
Can I ask a question? Sorry to interject, Keith. What do you lads put that down to? Because that sticks out to me. That stat. What is it that you would put that down to? Any of you?
Do you know what? Liverpool for me, Errol, and you'll remember this from back in the day. Liverpool now for me are like the new Fergie time. Like Liverpool are never done. They're never ever done until the final whistle goes, and they took over that mantle from Man United, because Man United were exactly the same. You know, Fergie, you'd have his finger on his watch, and you just knew there was an equaliser coming or a winner coming, and that's kind of how I feel against Liverpool. And just to interject as well, just to add this in, when I was out with my mates for the last match, where we were 1-0 up, and then obviously we conceded and lost 2-1 with the Núñez double. My mate said to me at half time, he was like, what odds are Liverpool to win? And bear in mind, you were down to 10 men as well. And I was just like, oh, mate, don't even bother. But he was being bullish and all that. He was like, what odds are Liverpool to win? And I went 17-1. And he was like, sounds, I'm going to go and put a bet on them. And he come back, Errol, and he put 100 quid on it. And we were all like laughing at him, going, lad, you're mad. And then obviously the scenes at full time, when obviously they won and that.
Happy Bev's on him.
Yeah, well, they were.
I remember you telling me about this, Chris. I remember you telling me about that.
Yeah, mate, it was just mental. That was in the middle of town as well. I think we're in the Manhattan, but yeah, it was just. But it was almost like when it happened, I wasn't like in complete shock, because I come to expect it. So to answer your question, I suppose I think it's just a mentality, and it's a winning trait, and like Liverpool just don't give in, and they're used to keep going, and it's not over till it's over kind of thing. And that in fairness, I think Klopp's drilled that into them, and that's why they are the way they are.
No, okay. Sorry, Keith, I interrupted you there. You was doing your stats.
No problem. I'm nearly finished. What I would just add before finishing the stats off as well, I totally agree with that, with what Chris has just said there. I think the relentlessness of particularly the seasons when Liverpool were going for the title, and that title winning season during COVID and the bit before that, the previous season, it did remind us of the classic Man United's sides of the 90s and the 2000s for sure. Just a little bit on the defensive form for Newcastle. That's taken a hit as well, and they conceded an average of goal a game in the first 11 matches, but now that's up to 1.7 goals per 90 minutes that they're conceding. They've been underperforming in attack as well, which touched on the attack and form in the first 11 games. The last 7, the expected goals of 16.7. They've only hit about 10 games in recent games, so that is far down as well. So it's at both sides of the pitch that Newcastle have got the problems in particular. And that rounds off the stats people will be happy to hear.
Great stats as always, Keith. To be fair, I kind of expected it, but very much favoured in Errol's favour. I can see him smiling, ear to ear with regards to hearing some of those things. Yeah, of course.
Bro, I said to you, I put it out on my tweet. I don't know whether it's the best time or the worst time to face you, because of all signs are pointing to nailed on, 3 points, nailed on, 3-0, happy days, Darwin Núñez, little brace, Salah a goal, jobs are good. And me gut's not telling me that though. Like my gut is not telling me it's going to be that straightforward. And that's not to say we still won't win, but I don't ever see it being straightforward, especially when you now know the stakes are really high. We're in that pressure cooker of knowing the stakes are really high. It always makes for a tasty game, but you guys are panicking, and I understand your concern, but I'm not royal ruling this down as a foregone conclusion that Liverpool are going to walk all over you on Monday, because I just don't see it happening.
And Pete, this is what we were saying on the reaction show. This is exactly what we were saying on the reaction show, because Errol's right. Anybody now who watches football will be looking at this game and going, "Oh, it's a Liverpool win, Liverpool home win all day." But it doesn't always work like that. And the fact that Newcastle have been like, I think I'd actually be more nervous if we were going into this game four wins on the bounce, because it would be typical of us to kind of ruin it. But the fact that we've kind of got nothing to lose, everyone expects us to lose. So maybe, who knows? You know, we can kind of put a performance in.
And that's exactly, our worst ever form under Jurgen Klopp come last season, and we're about to face our biggest rivals in Manchester United. And for the first time, even the Gary Nevilles of this world, they're getting all excited because they think actually not only is there a chance we're finally favourites to beat Liverpool based on this season's form, we wiped the floor with them 7-0. Like, and that doesn't just happen. That was a freak result. But as I say, it was the freak result that nobody predicted on the planet. So I go into these type of games when, as you've said, you feel like you've got nothing to lose, and I'm sure Eddie Howe will use some of that in his his pre-match talk to kind of G the lads up, lads. You've got nothing to lose here. Just go out and show them the qualities that I know yous have got, and yous will be reet. Yous will be reet, man, and yous will be way off. Do you know what I mean? Like, so I'm still nervous, baby. Trust me, I won't be cocky and confident on stream on Monday. I will be very nervous, and I think it'll be a good game. But I'm not saying that we're going to roll yous over. No chance.
I think history, as Keith has put in there with his stats, history doesn't kind of lean in our favour at Anfield. And I think for a lot of Newcastle fans, all of us long-term Newcastle fans, that we particularly in the Premier League, we've seen us be confident. We've seen us be down in the dumps and think, oh, could it be that this is the turning point? And it never really is. So I think there's a little bit that in the back of our minds. But ultimately, we need it to be. We need there to be a reaction. We need to see something that's going to spark us into life. That doesn't necessarily mean 3 points, but we need to see a reaction from the players, because the last 2 games.
Can I ask you a question then? Would you rather see and this is for all three of you, would you rather see the reaction Premier League against Liverpool Monday, or the following weekend FA Cup against Sunderland? And I mean, like, your big reaction. If you're going to bounce back, if he's had to bounce back at any game, where do you bounce him back?
I'll let these boys answer that. So Chris, we'll start with you. Where would you rather see the reaction?
Anfield, all day, every day. Especially because obviously being from Liverpool, do you know what I mean? I want to see the reaction against Liverpool, and I do. As much as I want to progress, I want to knock Sunderland out, I want to beat them 20-0. At the end of the day, like, we should all our focus at this moment in time should be on the Premier League. And I think if we go to Anfield and go and get a result, even a draw, just go and get something at Anfield, that can be the start. Like we said earlier, Pete, that can be the start of the new year, and just go, right, roll your sleeves up. Let's sort out the second half of this season. So for me, it would be Anfield. Not saying I don't want to progress and beat Sunderland. If you offered me the choice, I'd pick Anfield all day.
Cool. Keith, what are your thoughts?
What are you going for, Keith?
If I give a sit on the fence answer, I would say with Chris, I would like it sooner rather than later, because I think it's 6 out of the 7. It's just psychologically, it's just a disaster. The season's petering out, and we need a reaction. So even a draw or something would be brilliant. But I can't lie, I want to beat Sunderland. Them 6 in a row. Since this fixture, the next time we're going to face Sunderland, I've had it in my mind. I want to roll Sunderland over 6-0. And it looks, unfortunately, that with the current form of Newcastle, I'm going to get neither. But that's what I would want out of the pair of them. I want to roll Sunderland over.
I'm going to say Liverpool. I want to see a reaction. And I'm going to stick to what I said on the reaction show for the Forest game, is that I think we beat Sunderland anyway, in my opinion. So for me, I'm confident going into the stadium. I think we beat Sunderland regardless. I think we're the better team. I think we will raise our game for that occasion. There's no doubt about it, because it's all or nothing in that game. It's a completely separate game. It's not about 3 points. It's not, for me, it's not even about progression in the competition. We have to win that game. And that game in isolation is very, very different. I think we win it anyway. I want to see a reaction in the Premier League, because I wanted to see it. This is the progression of Newcastle United for me. I want to see us go to Anfield and take points. We should have taken a point last season at Anfield. It took a last-minute goal for you guys to nick the win. We should have taken a point. I think our performance deserved a point in that game, and we haven't, and we should have. And I think I need to see that progression in this. We saw it when we drew 3-3 with Man City last season. I need to see that again this season. I need to see us do something at Anfield. I need to see us stop the rot of Aston Villa. Yeah. I know Sheffield United got something there, but seeing one of the top teams go there and actually stop the rot, I want to see that from Newcastle United. That tells me that we're going somewhere. Even if we got through this January and we took 3 points from that and we got a point in each game, I'd be going, you know what? Reaction. I can see the light.
Do you know what?
Your confidence.
Do you know what's interesting? I feel like it more said for Howe than for Newcastle, if that makes sense. I think Howe needs it more than Newcastle in terms of like the chasm of just the Liverpool thing. You know, keep reading off his stats there. His record against Liverpool's not good at all as a manager. So I think he needs to show that he's learned a little bit, because you've played that many games against Jurgen Klopp now. There's got to be some things that you can some takeaways that you think, you know, the draws, how do we shut up shop? You know, how do we not let them get back into games? How do we kill them off? All those questions he's probably had buzzing around his head. He's probably thinking he's got the answers to some of them now. Now's the time to execute it, maybe. Would I be right in saying?
Do you know what, as well, Errol? I don't know whether you'll have remembered this, but a lot of Newcastle fans, and I think it's fair to say us included, Pete, we kind of felt that game against Liverpool, that was one of the key moments where Eddie Howe made a big ruck. Like he took Anthony Gordon off when Anthony Gordon was causing Trent all kinds of problems, and he brought on Harvey Barnes. And so maybe that's going to be in the back of his mind as well. And he's going to be thinking, do you know what? I need to make up for this. I need to tactically get this spot on.
It's going to be interesting. Very, very interesting there. A good question there thrown out for sure. But what I'm going to do now is turn to the tactics board. I'm going to ask for you boys to keep this as brief as possible. So Errol, I'm going to ask for your starting lineup.
Yep.
And Chris, I'm going to come to you. Same process. Keith, I'm going to ask you to critique it, but we're going to keep it quite tight, because I can see there's 8 or 9 questions in there at least for Errol that we want to get to before we get to predictions. So, as we can see on the screen, we've got Liverpool, we've got Newcastle United. We always come to the opposition first. Talk me through your lineup of what you think it may be for the game on Monday, Errol.
Okay, so I'm going with Alisson in goal. You're obviously going to have Trent as your right back when you get a chance.
Yeah.
You're going to go Konate next to Trent.
Okay.
I think you're then going to drop in Van Dijk. Well, I know you're going to drop in Van Dijk.
Best centre back in the world. He's still on that hill.
He certainly is. He's at the top of the tree, baby. And then I'm going to have Joe Gomez alongside him there as well.
Yeah, because you've got a couple of injuries there. Obviously, Robertson is still recovering from the shoulder dislocation.
He's just coming back from
we've had our own fair shares. But you've added to that, is it? Because
Simicast now collarbone after the Saka incident in the game. With the Arsenal match. Into midfield. What game did we play? We beat Burnley. I think he did get a game, but I think Endo could go again. I'll be happy for Endo to go again in that midfield.
Sitting deep,
yep. Obviously, we know Trent will do the inverted role, but sitting deep. I think alongside him, you're going to go back to Szoboszlai on the right, and I think on the left, I think Curtis Jones gets the nod. I think he's had a couple of really, yeah, over Gravenberch anyway. I know he's managing his minutes for Gravenberch for a couple of injuries. And and I would go Gakpo through the middle. This is I don't think he will do this. My front three would be Gakpo through the middle, Nunes off the left, Salah off the right. But I think if anything, it'll probably be the other way around. I think Nunes will play through the middle and Gakpo will play off the left. But that's how I'd pretty much line it up, gents.
Interesting. Very interesting. Is McAllister injured at the moment? Is he not available?
Yeah, McAllister's still injured at the minute.
Okay.
And to be fair, it's probably a little bit too early to bring Jota back, but he'll probably come off the bench.
Okay. No, sound. Okay, so we'll look at Newcastle. Chris, I know you mentioned you weren't sure what this was going to look like potentially.
Yeah.
But what are you going for, fella? What are you thinking?
Okay, well, we'll start with Nick Pope in goal. Nick Pope in goal. Dubravka in goal.
I wish.
That was a good start.
Oh
I know. We're saying that after Nick Pope's horror show not last time he played Liverpool, but yeah, I still have nightmares about that. Right back, I think, is going to be Trippier.
Yeah. Okay.
I think left back is going to be Tino Livramento.
Ooh.
Because I against Mo Salah, I just don't know if it's the right decision to play Dan Burn, and the fact that Chris Wood turned him inside out, I have concerns over that. So I'm going to go Livramento. Keith can correct me if he thinks I'm wrong. And then in the middle, I think it will be Botman and Shaw.
Yeah, big Sven. I'm not going to lie. He wasn't really talked about in the reaction show, but Sven wasn't necessarily at fault for any of the goals at Forest. No. I actually thought he played pretty well for a guy that's been out 10 weeks. For the 60, 70 minutes that he played, I think Eddie Howe, people were questioning why they took Eddie Howe. Eddie Howe sort of took Sven Botman off in that game and put Trippier centre back. At that point, I think he was trying to protect him.
He's just protecting him, isn't he? The game was done. Yeah,
100%. And I think Sven Botman is massive to us. He's so important to this back line. He's a big player, and he will be a big player in the second half of the season, no doubt. Sorry, mate. Carry on.
No. So I think it'd be Fabian Shaw right centre back. Yeah. I think Bruno will play as the holding player. Even though I'm still not 100% sure on that, but it is what it is. That's where we are.
This is where we are, mate.
Yeah. I think it will be. Ooh. Do you know what? I think right centre mid is going to be Longstaff, and I think left centre it's Big Joe time. I think Big Joe's going to come back for this game.
Yeah, he'll be back. He ain't missing this game. I'll be shocked, mate. Big Joe is needed, particularly in that little battle there with Slumberslide. Yeah, he's needed. He is crucial.
Needs to off him.
Carry on, fella. Go for it.
I think on the left will be Anthony Gordon.
Yeah.
I think on the right will be Miggy Almiron.
Okay,
and through the middle,
might not be happy with that, but no.
I think it will be. I think that's how he's going to line up, and I think through the middle. Ooh,
out of these two bad boys,
I think he's going to persist with Isaac. Because Isaac had that really good game, didn't he, at Anfield, and that I think, he can cause some problems. But Callum Wilson, it wouldn't surprise me if Gordon maybe switched to the right and then Isaac moved to the left and then Callum Wilson through the middle. But I think we'll see how the game pans out. But that's what I think the starting 11 will be. The only question mark, really, Keith, is that left-back position. It's whether or not Dan Burn plays there. But I do think Livramento has been our best defender, so I think it's crazy to not have him in the starting 11. But tell me what you think.
Yeah. I think for sure. I think burnout for me. No pun intended, but burnout. Livramento in. I just think, obviously, that performance against Wolves. What's the matter with Spurs, Tottenham? They're going all Spursy all of a sudden.
I tell you what.
You can't rely on Spurs, can you?
You can't. Hey, Errol, you know this with Maz. You can't rely on Brighton either.
Right,
they're all over.
No, not
they're either doing this or they're getting spanked. Like, this is mad. Is it 2 pens tonight? 2 pens?
Jesus.
Anyway, sorry, Keith. I've interrupted you. Carry on, fella.
No problem. Livramento for me because Burns' performance, in particular, he's been coming back from an injury as well. Livramento has been the player in form. He's been the steadier player, and arguably in recent weeks, he's been the best defender. He's in against this game. You need him in. I think it's harsh that Miley's losing out. I'm not gonna lie. But would you take Longstaff out, given Longstaff's understanding with Bruno and the fact that it had been working well in previous games, earlier in the season? So yeah, I think maybe rest Miley from at least start, and maybe bring him on in the second half if you need to change the game somehow. And also, Almiron's been off form as well. And whilst I agree with your point there, Chris, about your front three, maybe to send a message at some point, how might want to consider Isak on the left, Gordon on the right, and Wilson up top, because he's just not been hitting them numbers, Almiron, and maybe he's been getting too comfortable.
Yeah, maybe. Pete, what do you reckon? Do you reckon? Would you? Obviously, the key talking points from what Keith said: Miguel Almiron on the right wing and Livramento left, and then obviously Miley through the middle. Do you think?
I'll be honest with you. There's only one change that I would make to this team personally, and it would be bringing in this man for this man.
Yeah.
Lewis Miley, for me, has been one of our better players, even in this worst period. He doesn't deserve to be dropped. And for me, I'm sick and tired of there's comments on social media. There's comments from even to be fair, Eddie Howe even mentioned about sort of monitoring him, looking after him. The lad's 17 years old. He's got energy to burn. If he is good enough, and he's proven this season that he's good enough, he's old enough to play in this team. And for me, he's outplaying Sean Longstaff at the moment. Sean Longstaff has not been good the last 2 games. And for me, there is no reason why Lewis Miley should not be starting. If he can go and do the business at the Parc des Princes in the Champions League, there's no reason why he can't play at Anfield, because the stature of the clubs are on a similar level. And the magnitude of the game is on the similar level. So we know he's capable of it. The guy needs to start for me. And that's the only change that I make. And a lot of people might question why Miguel Almiron's starting. And it's the point that I've made on this channel for the last 2 weeks, is that there is nobody else. We don't have another right winger option. And this is why in January we have to bring in a right winger, because he is not being competed against for that position. And people might disagree with me, but genuinely, Miguel Almiron doesn't have competition, so it's always going to affect his game. You go back to Wolves last season, and I keep going back to it, where Murphy gets the start ahead of him. Murphy plays well, and all of a sudden, Miguel Almiron comes off the bench and scores the winning goal. Shock. The poor performances, because he knew his place was up for grabs. And so he ups his performance to play at this level. Murphy's not back until the end of January. Miguel Almiron is the only right winger available at this club right now. The only way I can see that changing is if we go with Miggy out the team, we go Joe Linton on the left, Gordon here, and then we go Miley and Sean Longstaff in midfield. That's the only way.
Yourselves in the foot doing that, though. I think you shoot yourselves in the foot, because Gordon had Trent on. He's probably had the best performance against Trent all season. I think that was probably one of the last games where people were calling Trent for his defensive frailties. I think he's been excellent for most parts of the season defensively. But if there's been one player that's caused Trent untold amount of problems, it's been Gordon.
And I agree.
I take your point about Almiron, but that circles us back to what I mentioned about Eddie Howe, at the top of the show, really, about having that 13 or 14 players where when you can vie for competition in places, there's not a huge drop-off, so that everybody really wants to give 110% every single game, because they know if they don't, they're looking over the shoulder and someone else is trying to take the shirt off them.
I agree with you. For the points that you made about both Gordon and Almiron, I agree. This is why I think the team will be like this.
Pete, just the last thing, Pete. Do you think Eddie's going to start Livramento?
Honestly, Chris, he has to.
Yeah, he should.
If Byrne survives that performance against Forest, then all the question marks about Eddie Howe choosing his favourites and preferring his go-to guys comes to fruition, and people are just going to question him even more. He has to play Livramento. Livramento's had his drop effectively, or his rest, where he was on the bench and came on and actually looked pretty good when he came on.
Yeah,
Let's be honest. As bad as our performance was, Livramento comes on and actually shores things up. I think he spends a little bit of time on the right-hand side, and it might be Elanga that goes to do his run against Livramento that he'd been doing to Byrne all day and destroying him, and he makes that run, and Livramento just keeps up with him, stays ahead of him, and you don't see him make that run again for the rest of the game. And that goes back to the point that we said yesterday on our reaction, is if he'd have made that change quicker and then got Livramento on, say at half time, a lot of those chances that were kind of come up against us would never have happened. And you know, it's one of those situations I don't want to see again. So therefore, Livramento has to start for me.
I think you need to send a message as well. How can send a message to the rest of the, I know we've been injury hit, but with some of the players coming back, if he pulls Byrne out and then puts Livramento in, it sort of sends a message to the rest of the team, really, with some of the options that we've got coming back in. And if it goes wrong, at least Howe can say, look, I have made one or two changes.
Do you think there's any way we see what JB and NUFC said? Yeah, Livramento at right wing in place of Miggy and possibly Hall at left back. Do you think there's any way we see that?
It's a big gamble.
I don't think so.
No,
I'm not being funny. We played Hall in a really big game, an important game away at Dortmund, and he got hauled off, and he wasn't good. And I don't mean that as a punt, by the way, when I said that. he got pulled off because he wasn't good. Now, he was excellent at Old Trafford.
Yeah.
But he wasn't good there in a pressure game, an important game. This is an important game. This is massive. For me, might not be for two other fans. People might see it as a gimme. I don't. This is a massive game. I'm sorry, like, Trippier has to start. I actually don't think Trippier played that bad. I'm not going to lie, against Forest. I don't think he had a bad game. But he has to play for me, and Livramento has to play on that left-hand side. If you want to nullify one of the best players to play in the Premier League in our era, in Mohamed Salah, you have to play Livramento. You have to play him at the left-hand side. You do.
Yeah. And let's be honest, if we're going to have a conversation about Salah's not looking to sit a man down and run past them as much. No. If he smells blood, like he did with Zinchenko the other week, he will. But any defender that says, right, go on, I'll get into a foot race with you. Salah's trying to be a little bit more up here, and he's playing smarter, which I'm fine with, by the way. But if you've got a young lad who's got the legs and the energy to say, well, I'm going to track you stride for stride, that to me seems like a better matchup. One question I forgot to put on the agenda, and it's not because I particularly want to put an agenda out there, because I think he is a fine player. Is Kieran Trippier's form a worry to you, lads?
Great question. I've got my opinions on it, but I'm going to leave the floor to you, boys. Chris, I'll come to you first. Keith, weigh in, of course, on your opinion on this. Is Kieran Trippier's form, as Errol said, a worry to us?
I don't think it's a worry as such for me, Errol, only because we've got Tino Livramento there. I mean, I expect. I don't think Kieran Trippier is done. I think he's still got another good 18 months. I think the rest of this season, next season, until we start looking at replacing him. However, what I will say is I didn't agree with Eddie Howe when he started him. I thought that Trippier should have been dropped after that Everton game, and then subsequently the Tottenham game as well. I felt exactly the same way. When you've got a player performing as well as
Son absolutely taught him a new one.
Yeah, he did. He did.
Unbelievable.
He did. And two terrible errors against Everton that basically cost us the game, because that's essentially what it did.
Game too.
Yeah.
Bench.
Yeah, so that was when we should have dropped him, and then he would have had we had to earn the right to get back in the team. That's what I would have done. Pete Wright, I thought he did okay against Nottingham Forest. It's a team effort, obviously, and we can't blame certain individuals for it. But I think I hope Kevin Trippier gets back to where he was, and I'm hoping it's just a confidence thing, whether it's fitness, whether it's fatigue, whether it's mentality. I don't know. But you know, Tino Livramento is there. He's ready. And if Kevin Trippier continues, then Tino Livramento should step in at right back, and then it's up to Trippier to earn his way back into the team. What we didn't mention, boys, is there any way we see Tino Livramento playing right back and Trippier left back against Salah?
Say that again, Chris. Sorry.
We didn't mention, Pete, about possibly playing Livramento right back and Trippier left back against Salah, an old guard, you know, who knows how to defend against the players like Salah, or is that just setting him up to fail given his recent form?
I wouldn't bet against it. I wouldn't be surprised to see a switch during the game. Because I think for the points that Errol's just said about Salah not really wanting to beat a man and looking to do things in front of the fullback, that might actually suit Trippier down to the ground. But it's a fair point, because if Trippier's coming up against Darwin Núñez, who is rapid, full of pace, full of power, full of enthusiasm to get forward on that left-hand side, but even if it's Gakpo, same problem. Yeah, exactly. Same problem. So, you know what? I think that's a great shout. I think it wouldn't surprise me to see that swap, that change at some point in the game if things aren't going well. But I think this is probably how it will start, because Trippier, for all the question marks we've got about Almiron and Trippier at the moment, and one or two others. They still have that connection together. They still understand each other's game. And I mean, Trippier and Almiron. And I think if we're going to do anything going forward against Liverpool at Anfield last season, it's where we got our biggest joy, down that right-hand side. And obviously it was Robinson this time it's Joe Gomez, who is a decent player.
Yeah.
He's no Andrew Robertson. And so are we able to use Trippier on that right-hand side to exploit Liverpool down that left-hand side or not? I don't know.
And do you know what as well, Pete? It's worth thinking. Salah's predominantly left-footed, isn't he? So having a right-footed player at left-back wouldn't be the worst, because we know Salah likes to go on that left foot. I know he can use his right foot, but predominantly he likes to go on that left foot, doesn't he? And curl one in. So to have, you know, someone right-footed like Trippier basically blocking that off, that wouldn't be such a bad thing.
No, I think that's a fair point for sure. But no, it's going to be really, really interesting, guys. I want to kind of come away from the tactics right now, just because we've gone on longer than I anticipated. But it was a great chat, and it was some really good questions on the back of that. I just want to come now to a few questions before we get to the predictions to wrap up the show. So, Chris, give us 3 or 4 the main questions out of what we've got so far to ask Errol and the rest of us, if there is one, before we wrap up.
Yeah, we've got a really good one here from Nobby Clark, and I think a few of us would like to know the answers to this. Did you see enough of Karius, final calamity aside, to say that he's better than Dubravka or not?
That's a really hard one, and I'll keep it brief, just because he's never played, or I've never seen him play a great deal of football post that. And when he did play, I think he went back to Germany somewhere, he looked shot of any confidence for a really long time. Like, I know it sounds mad because it's football, it's a sport, but these are their day in, day out. They've lived for that moment since they was kids. That was a proper trauma moment for that young man in that final. So it's easy to say calamity aside, but there was a lot of trauma that had to be unpacked. Prior to that, I did think there was a keeper in there of the same level. Maybe not necessarily a Pope, but he definitely up there with. He was up there with one of the better goalkeepers in the Premier League. I thought he decent kicking. He was half a decent shot stopper. Probably just wasn't very commanding in his box, and probably not strong enough in those areas. The Bradford's tried and tested, isn't he? So he's not your number one, but you know what you're going to get from him, and there's no real surprises. So I think you're probably in safer hands with him. It's not by much, but I think you're probably in safer hands with Dubravka.
Yeah. It's an interesting one off Alan Thompson, and he asked you, Errol, if you could ask Jurgen Klopp one question, what would it be? And then he says, tongue in cheek, better atmosphere, perhaps. But what would be the one question you'd ask Jurgen Klopp if you had the opportunity?
Oh, that's a tough one. If I could only ask him one question, are you subscribed to the Redmen TV? I'd have to ask him. I know he watches. I know he watches Chris and Paul, because when they've seen him a couple of times, they get sometimes a match, press access pre-season, and he's like, "Oh, I've seen you guys." You know what I mean? So they've had comments and stuff. But it'd be nice if the gaffer had watched me at one point on the stream losing me shit. But yeah, to be honest, I'd probably find a better question. But you put me on the spot, so I'd ask him if he watches on Redman. Yeah, why not?
No, why not, mate? Why not? Will asks you, are Liverpool going to be active in the January transfer market?
I think with Tsimikas being injured now, I think there's a requirement for us to go and do some business in defence. I was quite content 3 weeks ago defensively. I thought, let's get Robertson back. Quanta's there. Gomez is playing well. Gutted about Matip, but Quanta's there, and we've got enough, provided Konate doesn't get injured. But I think we will probably look to strengthen our defensive line in the January transfer window. Yeah, I can't see us doing anything from an attacking perspective. It would have to be the guy if we was going to get a 6, and I just don't think we're going to get the guy in January.
Yeah. Foxy asked this question. I'm really keen to hear the answers to this. He's been a big fan of Diaz since his days back in Colombia with Junior. Not surprised to see him reach top level, but expected more from him in the Premier League. Not clinical enough. Fans are getting frustrated. Is that the case?
100%. Pete knows. And everyone can say, "Oh, you've had an agenda for months." I was saying it last season. Last season, my question mark was the left-hand side. What can Diaz do for me? And I had a conversation. We did the stream last week, and the lad went, "Yeah, but we played really well against Arsenal last season." I said, "Yeah, but I'm in that 'what have you done for me lately' mode." And what he's done for me lately has not been enough. So there is frustration. And again, I can't stress this enough. There are extenuating circumstances as to what's gone on in that young man's life in the last 6 to 8 weeks. So I understand. I am not expecting him to play his best football at all times. However, I referenced that Son performance against Trippier the other week. He needs to take notes, because he had that in his locker 12 months ago. It seems like he's forgot his key.
Yeah.
And that's just what I want to see back from him. So he's got it. I just need to see it come back.
Yeah. Got 2 more for you, Errol. And I'm gonna tweak this one slightly, because I'm interested to hear your answer on this one. JB NUFC says thoughts on Harvey Elliott this season. But what I want to ask you as well is, given the choice, you're picking your starting 11, really important game. Are you putting Harvey Elliott in centre midfield or Curtis Jones?
Curtis Jones, just because of the balance of where he fits into the team. I don't think we can pin Harvey down that left-hand side and I get the same level of impact and performance out of him. We've seen them both in the midfield together, which I didn't think 12 months ago. I didn't think we'd see that for a while, but we've seen that both of them in the midfield now, winning games, helping us to win games. So I think that's a big step for them. Harvey Elliott's been brilliant this season, though. I think he's had an amazing amount of impact off the bench, and I'm quite confident. If Jurgen turns to him and drags him off the bench, I'm confident that he's going to come on and perform. The last couple of starts, he's upped his levels as well. If he can keep that now as his benchmark, I think he's going to go on to have a really... It sounds mad to say his breakout season, but I think in terms of now trying to make it from the under-21s in the England camp to knocking on Southgate's door to be like, well, there's the Euros, any chance of a shout? I think if he can keep this as his benchmark, there's conversations to be had towards the end of the season, because I think he's had a very strong season so far, Harvey Elliott. Very strong.
Yeah, no, that's fair. And then this last one from Tom Dixon. Where do you think Liverpool will finish this season? And dare he say it, have you got a good chance of winning the league?
Well, I've seen someone else add on to this. You've got a chance of winning a treble. I said again, early shows this season, I said, watch us now do the Liverpool thing and win the shit quad. We'll win the league, we'll win the FA Cup, we'll win the League Cup, and we'll win the Europa League. And it'll just get labelled as the shit quad, and nobody will care. I'm still saying that very tongue-in-cheek, by the way, so don't clip it and make out that is what I'm banking on. I want us to win the league. I think we have a great chance if the lads get through January unscathed, that there's a potential for us to win the league. However,
what's going on?
Sorry. However, I
taking control behind the scenes.
AI.
There we go. We're back.
I want us to win the league. However, I think I've said it for a while now. I wouldn't be bothered if this season was a season too soon, considering the size of the rebuild that we done in the summer. If we was to still go on and lift silverware in the ilk of the FA Cup or the Europa League. So if we did a double there, or if we won one of those two, and obviously qualify for Champions League in the automatic places, first, second, third, fourth, I would consider it to have been a good season. But of course, I would like Liverpool to finish top of the tree. But I think at the minute, City would still be my favourites for it. I know that you're sitting there in fourth, but I can't look past them. If I'm being deadly honest, I think Liverpool probably finish above Arsenal. I think it might be City, Liverpool, Arsenal, and then there's a lot of competition for that fourth spot, I'll be honest.
Yeah, that's fair.
What I find interesting, what I would add to that, Errol, is if Liverpool are in Arsenal's position Arsenal were in towards the end of the season in that run-in, I don't see Liverpool
City
dropping
catching no, and that's true. I think that's fair, but we've got to get ourselves there. If we're in that position, Potts wasn't sticking his chest out. I'll stick my chest out because I know we can get it over the line. I understand the apprehension when you've not seen your team do it for 20 odd years. Don't get it twisted. I was 30 odd years. I hadn't seen it in my lifetime up until a couple of years ago. So I do get it. But no, with this side, I do think if we're in that position, we get the job done. But we've got to get ourselves there. And I always say January is Jurgen's hardest month. I think if I had a statsman like you on Red Men, they'd probably look back at his Januaries and there'd probably be some truth to that as well.
Yeah.
Great points as always. And there we go. There are the questions. Thank you for all your questions in. Sorry if we didn't get to all of them. But now we're going to get to the big important questions, is what is the prediction before we wrap up? And look, I'm going to go for it. I'm sorry, it's not going to be positive from me. I think we're going to lose. I think it might be a 2-0 to Liverpool. I can't see it personally. It's not like me to be negative. Normally, I'll always give a positive spin on things, but I just can't see how things are going to be better after the game. So therefore, I'm going 2-0 Liverpool. Chris, I'm going to come to you. What you thinking, mate?
I'm gonna cling in there, mate. I'm gonna be with a lot of Reds on Monday, and I can't go into that game thinking I'm gonna get turned over. So I'm gonna go 1-1. I'm gonna hope that we can go there, get a point, and I think we'd look back and say, actually, yeah, that was a really good point. So I'm gonna say 1-1.
Okay, 1-1. I'll take it right now. I'll snap your hand off for that. No doubt whatsoever. 2-0. West Ham.
No.
West Ham.
To the West Ham.
Lie.
Mavropanos. From a corner.
Arsenal.
Why does that always happen, Pete? I'm obviously I'm a little bit behind here. It always zooms in on the player who scores. They were zooming in on Mavropanos, and then he's just literally scored.
Yeah. Flicked in from a corner. Sorry to go off topic for a second. Yeah, Mavropanos flicks it in against his old club. Doesn't celebrate. In off the bar. It's a great goal. Fair play. In off the bar. Yeah, 2-0.
The results. I mean, Errol just sidewinded here. Not only good results for you, but I've still got very, very thin hopes of top four, and the fact that Tottenham and Arsenal have dropped points,
massive
for me. I don't see Brighton or West Ham putting up a big fight, for that top four, top five. So these results are good for me. No, even better for Liverpool, I'm sure.
Definitely. Lawless will be active tonight, that's for sure. Already
blowing up. It's already blowing up. Pete, I've just checked.
I'm seeing it, mate. I'm seeing it. That's for sure. Errol, I'm going to come to you. What's your score prediction?
I think it's going to be nervy, and I think it's going to be 2-1. I think it's going to be a 2-1 to Liverpool.
Okay. You see us scoring the goal. I'll take that.
No, I do.
Yeah. And Keith, we'll come to you last. Talk to us. What's your prediction and why? Let us know, fella.
Before I give you my prediction, I thought I'd give you a bonus stat about Loris Karius. When he was at Liverpool, he managed 22 clean sheets in 49 games. In that season, when Liverpool got to the Champions League for the first time in recent times, 2017-18, he managed 16 clean sheets in total.
He was having
to the final in the Champions League. So he was doing.
He had
amazingly.
a great season. Up until that point, he had been having a great season because he came in and upstairs Mignolet, and you couldn't doubt him. There was still a bit of frailty, but you couldn't doubt him. And then the final happens, and it just undone all of his hard work. And as I say, I think there's trauma attached to that, isn't there? We've seen it with England and penalties down the years and the repercussions. So very, very, very gutting for the lad, but that's football, fine margins.
And my prediction, I can see 2 scores here. Unfortunately, I'm not confident because Newcastle, whereas they went to the Anfield last season and they went with confidence, they had a relentlessness about them, they had the energy about them, things were going right on and off the pitch for Newcastle at that stage. This one, I've got the sense of realism. I still don't think we've hit the bottom yet of our current form. I think that is one of me scores that I'm predicting. And the other, it could even be worse. It could be that. So not a great way to start the year, but there are positives. At least it's the first day, and then that'll be out the way. And for Chris, it'll be a short journey home at least. So you've got to look at the positives.
True. Yeah, there is that. I think we're only going the Walton Vale, so yeah, it won't be too bad.
Yeah. Well, there you go. There you have it. Predictions are in. I definitely take Chris's 1-1. I definitely want to see a goal. So a goal to be positive with Errol's 2-1. But first and foremost, massive thanks to Errol coming and joining us, spending this time for your preview. Look, where can we find you, fella? Where can we find you on Monday?
Redmen TV. I'll be doing the watch along on Redmen on Monday. Solitaire side up on Twitter. As you know how it is, Pete. We do a couple of shows a week together. You know I enjoy chopping it up with you lads. You're always good to me. The chat's always nice and kind. You've got some good content and some good knowledge going on in your chats there. So thank you very much for having me again, gents, and I look forward to it. And hopefully my team do the job come Monday.
Definitely. Chris has put it in the chat, so we know where to find you. Particularly if we win, or if a miracle happens and we win, I think everyone's going to come and find you.
Oh, I'm sure he did the last game. The last game he was fuming with me, fuming that we nicked it. I was like, it's all love. It's all love.
Yeah, it's all good. It's all good. But look, Keith, thank you for your stats as always, and your opinions on all things Newcastle United. Great to have you on here, and great to have you with the stats as well. And of course, the main man, Mr. Chris Hall. Thank you as always for joining us. Great opinions. You know the drill. Obviously, your neck of the woods as well, being over that side of the country. You know the score. But great to have you as well. And finally, massive thanks to everyone in the chat. Thank you for all your questions. As Errol said, such knowledgeable people in the chat. Great opinions, great questions. It's what we do. It's what we do.
Genuinely, because we do a lot of chats, and there's a lot of public chats that are a lot of waffle. And it's nice. There are some shows that we do when we do a little bit more banter, but it's nice to just have a proper unpack of certain football elements, and the chat's always great for that. So big up yourself in the chat, man.
Definitely. 100%. And look, we'll be back as well. We'll be back for sure. Looking at the loaded reaction as it comes up after the game. Probably on the Tuesday we'll be looking to do that. And I'm tentative to put the next show on because I just want to make sure it's confirmed. So I'll leave it for now. But there's another show potentially coming up before that that we will get into for sure. So keep your eyes peeled on Loaded Mag's Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, whatever it is, for the shows that are coming up very, very shortly. But look, we'll leave it there. Thank you to everyone in the chat. Thank you for your support. Thank you for you boys. Errol, Keith, Chris, as always. Of course, we do love playing away. Chris, take us out, fella.
How you like that?
How are the lads? Come on.
How you like? drink it.